played at this place. Come after me. I'm a man. I'm for you. Can't wait. Let's go.
Good morning and welcome to Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show here on Sports Empire Network. I am Chris, and of course, that over there is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
Doing great, man. On a hump day, ready to go.
Mo, there are certain things that I think a franchise quarterback needs to have, right? Obviously, he needs to be able to do certain things on the field, but also my franchise quarterback needs to be able to do and carry himself in a certain way off the field. If I am running an NFL team, there are many, many things that I need to worry about, and I'm hoping that one of the things that I am not worrying about is whether or not my franchise quarterback, the guy that I think can lead me to a championship in a Super Bowl, is going on to talk shows and getting into it with late night TV personalities to the point where lawsuits are being threatened and wild accusations are being made about whether or not this person is involved on a list of other people's names that obviously would create a very sticky situation for said late night personality. And of course, I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers right now and whatever feud he has going on with Jimmy Kimmel, seemingly out of nowhere. And the feud is well known. Jimmy Kimmel took some shots at Aaron Rodgers and his vaccination stance or non-stance or whatever that situation was when that happened. And apparently, you know, Aaron, being the stand-up fella that he is unable to let things go. And out of nowhere, on the Pat McAfee show, Aaron Rodgers just starts alluding to the fact that when this Epstein list is leaked or released or whatever, Jimmy Kimmel is going to be on the list. Now, obviously, if that ends up being the case, that is a Pandora's box for Jimmy Kimmel. And you would assume that Aaron Rodgers would not just be making statements like that unless for some reason he knew. Now, why does Aaron Rodgers know who is on the list? I don't know. Apparently, one of Aaron's former teammates tweeted out a portion of the list with some names redacted on it. How did he get the list, Mo? I don't know. I don't know how people have the list before the list is released. I don't know why Aaron happens to be in the know in this situation. But if I am the owner of the New York Jets, I don't want this. Stop it. Do not get into these spats with Jimmy Kimmel. Do not have Jimmy Kimmel alluding to the fact that he's going to sue you and take you to court for the things that you're saying. I don't want Jimmy Kimmel saying things like you're endangering his family by the comments that you're making. What, Mo? What are we doing here? You say enough stuff, football related, that's going to give me a headache. I don't need you doing this, Aaron. I just need you to stop it.
I need you as my franchise quarterback. I just need you to focus on getting healthy and being ready to go next season. But the other nonsense, like to me, first of all, it's no secret when Aaron Rodgers goes on the Pat McAfee show, that's basically Aaron Rodgers' therapy session, right? He goes on there to vent. He'll say even more things that he normally doesn't say on that show. It's almost like his video diary. He just sits there and, right? I'm just saying. And he just starts spilling. And you don't want this as an organization. More importantly, why would you put something like that out in the air, out in the internet, especially in the times that we live in where there are so many people that are quick to gravitate and believe it to be true? And we don't know what the situation is. I don't care if you get it from a teammate or not. unless your teammate is some unique investigative reporter who can actually say the list that I have is the certified list of people who have gone there and been associated with Mr. Epstein, there's no way to know that or to verify that. For you to co-sign on that and put that out there as fact, that's insanity. And I don't understand how Aaron Rodgers, he seems to struggle with just being a football player. It's not enough to just be a great quarterback, high-profile guy, and leave it at that. He goes on Pat McAfee, and like I said, he goes into his diary, and he just spilled. You know what it is? He's oversharing. I think he's letting us see too much of Aaron. Like, if he's got an advisor or his agent, I would pull him aside and go, we need to hear less from you. You know, be less vocal. But because right now, if I'm the Jets owner and management, I don't want this insanity surrounding my franchise. I don't want any of that. And what if Jimmy Kimmel goes forward and he does sue you? And he's proven right. That it would just get uglier and you will be made to look the fool. Why even go there to begin with?
And I think that's where I kind of fall on it. Let's say Aaron is like 100% sure that Jimmy Kimmel is going to be on this list. Just wait for the list to come out, Aaron. If the list is about to come out and you know that Jimmy Kimmel is on the list, let the list come out and then make your comment and then throw your mud. That's all we're doing here. You're upset that he said what he said about you with the vaccination and all that nonsense. And you have waited a long time to be able to say something about him. Right. And now it looks like he might be involved in something that you want to sling mud for. Well, let's wait for confirmation that he's actually involved, because you're not an investigative reporter. You're not breaking news. You're not a part of this investigation, Aaron. So if it comes out that he is, and you still feel the need to take shots for whatever reason, then you do you. It's almost like, Mo, a reality TV show where you see all the drama happening on the TV and then they cut away to like that little monologue where it's just the camera and the one person who is involved in it. And they just get to kind of freely speak their mind about the situation that you just saw. That is Aaron Rodgers all the time on the Pat McAfee show. It's just his internal monologue with no filter. And they just allow him to just, and I'm sure it's great ratings. I can't imagine what the Aaron Rodgers segment is on that show once a week. It's probably through the roof. But Mo, like you said, what if the list comes out and he's not on it? Because all we saw in that tweet was Immel, Immel, like the last 2/3 of his last name. The rest was redacted. So sure, it could be Jimmy Kimmel. It could also be Brad Dimmel. We don't know. It was redacted. Brad. We don't know what was there. If it comes out Brad Dimmel, I'm sorry, Aaron, you're probably getting sued.
Right.
Like, come on now. And I get it. I'm not going to hold this against Pat McAfee. I'm sure ESPN has literally said, get him to say as much as he is willing to say. Because it's literally a week's worth of social media gold for the entire network when he comes on there and just spews what he's going to spew.
Oh, every segment that he comes on, remember, they've got like 8 guys in studio or something like that. But when he comes on, it becomes the Rodgers show for however long he's on. And the ratings are gold because you can get him to say things that normally he'd probably say just at the crib or in private. Even with the Sean Payton, Russell Wilson situation, he had some strong comments about that. And I thought, there you go again, digging into your diary and you're just putting it out there. And I don't know if you need to do that. One, it's not a secret. We already know you don't like Sean Payton because he went after your guy. So we already know that. Not a secret. And right now, however you swing it, Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, they're both kind of low-hanging fruit.
Isn't that the thing here, Mo? You almost look at Aaron and you almost don't value his opinion sometimes because you know that 99% of the time he has a very biased opinion. Like, if you just take what he said about Sean Payton, for example, you might agree with it. But then you're like, oh, Aaron said it. He hates Sean Payton. Let's take 2 steps back here, because he isn't coming from a place of being unbiased and just looking at the situation. Correct. He's coming from a place of, I hate Sean Payton, and this is a chance for me to throw some mud at him. And that's what you always kind of get with Aaron. And Colin Cowherd has been saying this for a long time about Aaron Rodgers, and I didn't put much stock into it until this season, but he often points out the fact that Aaron isn't married. Aaron doesn't have kids. Aaron has severed relationships, known severed relationships with his family members. Aaron is very much an individual in his own world, and he is very much the center of his own world, and there isn't really much going on in Aaron's world that isn't focused on Aaron. And I've always kind of looked at that and been like, so what? Like, let him do him. Let him live his life. Right. But as you see him get older, Mo, you see these like, this is an example of it. Why? Why are you doing this in this platform to Jimmy Kimmel? Whether it's true or not, why? Well, it comes back to the fact that he is a 40-year-old man who has nothing else going on in his life right now. He's been recovering from this injury for the better part of almost a year now. And he doesn't have much else going on. So he's going to do what makes himself feel good about himself. And he's been holding this grudge against Jimmy for a while, a couple years. And now he has a chance to get back at him and even the score. So he goes, you know what? I'm going to do it. And Mo, there's no one there to tell him not to. There is no girlfriend or wife to be like, Aaron, just let it, stop it. No, there's no one. I'm sure, and I don't know, but I'm guessing he has a lot of yes men around him. And I'm guessing that anyone who is in his circle after these moments is like, ha, you got him. You told him, baby. Like, I'm sure that's what he's hearing a lot of, because if he's not, he probably gets rid of you. Aaron doesn't strike me as someone who likes to have people tell him he's wrong or second guess his decisions. Just saying.
No, this is, look, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I would say that anybody with common sense, just from afar, at the way he deals with people or scrutiny or how everything centers around him, this is just me. Aaron clearly has some narcissistic tendencies. I mean, it's kind of plain. If you don't know that, then you haven't been watching Aaron Rodgers for the past umpteen years.
We're not breaking news over here, Mo.
not even a little bit. And look, I'm not a big Jimmy Kimmel. I don't care. I mean, he's kind of funny, but I don't watch him or anything like that. But I'm aware of the situation. And you're making something that is a non-story into a massive story, because it will grow. Because Jimmy Kimmel making jokes about you and your vaccination stature one way or another is one thing. It's a joke. It wasn't funny to you, and I get that. But the Epstein situation is beyond serious. That's serious, dark stuff that affects people in a real way, families and so on. And when you drag people into something like that, because now you're going in the darker, murkier waters, be careful. Be very careful.
And let's not forget, Mo, Jimmy Kimmel's platform is that. He is a late night host. His job is to make fun of things in the world of pop culture. Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback in the NFL. He is one of 32. And oh, by the way, he's actually pretty good at what he does. So in the world of the NFL, he's actually kind of up here, which means people are going to say more stuff about you. So Jimmy Kimmel was very much in line with what his job is and what his platform is and what he should be doing. And I get it. Aaron probably didn't like it. But I would also argue that it's not Aaron's job to be doing what he is doing in regards to Jimmy Kimmel. And I damn sure hope that when that list comes out, Jimmy's name is on it, because if it's not, Aaron Rodgers is going to have some answering to do, because you can't just say that stuff and walk away from it, Mo. So for Aaron's sake, I hope that whatever information he has is accurate, because it's going to get a lot murkier if this list comes out and it was just Aaron being like, ha, gotcha, because that's not how that works. Not with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and look, I lean the other way. I hope Jimmy Kimmel's name's not on that list because
that's true. That's true.
If you're on that list, you're a creeper and a sick person. Just saying. I hope this just goes away. Maybe they have a private conversation or their representatives have a private conversation and it just kind of like fades. I prefer it to go that route than it to build.
Aaron doesn't have private conversations. He's not that guy.
At least not when he goes to the McAfee show. If it is private, when he goes on that show, it's public.
Well, let's jump to this. We got some NBA stuff here. I wanted this morning to kind of take a look at the landscape of the NBA. And we're going to start in the East because it's nicer. It is a nicer feeling when you look at the East. We have some tiers that I came up with this morning, and I think it just makes sense. So we got 3 tiers happening currently in the East. Tier 1 is going to be the Celtics, the Bucks, and the 76ers. I think they're pretty much all on the same platform. Record-wise, they're pretty much all right around each other. And if you had to pick 3 teams to win a title from the East, those are probably the first 3 teams that most people are going to go for.
For sure.
Then we have Tier 2. Tier 2 is a little bit bigger. It's going to include the Heat, the Magic, the Pacers, the Knicks, and the Cavaliers. They're all within a game or 2 of each other. They're all about, 4 or 5 games respectively behind Tier 1. And that's the group where you're like, I wonder if anyone can come out of that group to challenge one of the top 3. And then we have Tier 3. And Tier 3 isn't really a place that anybody wants to be. And that's the teams that are kind of still in the playoff conversation. A couple of them are going to make the play-in. But I don't think anyone's really giving any of these teams an opportunity to do anything this season. And that is Brooklyn, Chicago, Atlanta, the Raptors. They're all under 500. None of them are really all that great. And then I don't even think teams like the Hornets, the Wizards, and the Pistons deserve to be on a tier, so they're not. They're just kind of waiting in the water below.
Actually, those teams that you just mentioned, they are on a tier. They're on Tier 1 when it comes to the lottery.
That's true. That is true. So, Mo, looking at the East and how it kind of breaks down nicely into those little boxes, the conversation I want to have this morning is, let's look at Tier 2. So you got the Heat, you got the Magic, you got the Pacers, you got the Knicks, and you got the Cavaliers. The Heat are 19-14. They're the 4 seed right now. The Cavaliers are 18-15. They're the 8 seed right now. It's about a game and a half, 2 games between 4th all the way down to 8th. Of those 5 teams, obviously the Knicks just made a big move, and they're talking about how they can still make another move, which I'm not quite confident they have the pieces to pull off another big trade, but they think they do, so we'll see. But of those 5 teams, if you had to put money on one of them, which one of them has the best chance, as they are comprised today, to challenge one of the big 3 teams and to potentially get to the finals in the East?
So you're saying with their current roster construction, which one, barring any moves, which one of them?
Yeah, because we don't know what big moves might be coming down the line. Obviously, the Knicks are still trying to make a move. There might be some movement with Cleveland. There's things being circulated, but just with where they stand this morning, Heat, Magic, Pacers, Knicks, Cavs, which one has the best chance to compete with the top 3 in the East?
I mean, if I had to pick somebody, just by default, because of their history, I would pick Miami. But if you're asking me outright, I don't think any of them can compete with the top 3. They're all flawed. There's a reason why they are where they are. They all need to make a move. They're all the kind of teams right now that you look at and go, they're good, but because they're missing something. They're not good enough. They either don't have enough star power, they're older, the construction is off. When you look at Cleveland, for instance, the fact that you have Evan Mobley and you've got Jared Allen, 2 zero-range bigs, and you keep them on the floor at the same time, automatically your floor spacing is terrible, and they don't really run an offense. They basically ask Donovan Mitchell to bail them out of bad possessions, possession after possession. He plays one-on-one and he does some amazing things at times and they win. And he plays one-on-one and he doesn't have a good shooting night and they lose. That's the Cavaliers.
And then if we look at the West, I like to call this the mess in the West because it does not fit into nice, tidy little boxes like my East does. If you look at the West, obviously you have your top two teams out there. You have the Wolves, you have OKC. I would even put Denver, even though record-wise they're a couple games back, but I would put Denver into that category. So I'm going to go, that's my tier one. Those are my three teams. We'll kind of keep it even. That's tier one in the West. But then my tier two is a lot bigger. My tier two
is like everybody.
is pretty much everyone else because even though there's about 5 games between 4th and 10th, well, really 5.5 between 4th and 11th, I don't know if the Clippers are really that much better than, the Rockets or the Lakers or the Suns. They're playing well now, but I could easily look at those other 3 teams and be like, I think they could win a series against the Clippers. I don't think the Clippers would be a runaway favorite in a series with one of those teams. So when you look at 4 through 11, and it's going to include the only 500 team in this situation, which is the Golden State Warriors, Clippers, Kings, Pelicans, Mavericks, Suns, Rockets, Lakers, Warriors. Who is the best of that group comprised as they are this morning to put into the conversation with the Nuggets and the Timberwolves? And I guess for now, OKC, but I guess there's even some questions as to whether or not OKC has the staying power to be a top 2 team in the West. They've shown us so far they do, but you would have to assume that as this season shakes out, the Nuggets are going to reassert their authority as we get closer to playoff time. And you would have to think going into the playoffs, most likely in the West, your 1-2 is going to be Minnesota and Denver. But who knows, Mo? Who knows?
So when you look at Minnesota, what people don't realize about them is they're number 1 in the league in defense. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've committed to that side of the ball and they can lock you down. And then you've got this up and coming burgeoning superstar in Anthony Edwards, who can be a special talent. My issue when I look at Minnesota is this, though. You've got Anthony Edwards, you've got Karl Anthony Towns, both averaging 21 or more points per game. And then there's this big gap between the third leading scorer where you got 2 guys that average 12 points a game. And that looks good on paper. But then when you really pay attention, those 2 guys are both Rudy Gobert and Naz Reid. That's your starting center and your backup center. And the thing about centers are, unless they're like a Joel Embiid or a Joker, they have to have the ball brought to them. They have to be set up to finish, like both those guys I just mentioned. So you can easily neutralize them because they're not game-changing players. So I look at the Timberwolves and I go, going into the playoffs where the floor shrinks and every possession becomes a grind, I think they're in need of another perimeter player. They need another guy that can drop 16 to 18 a night because that flawed construction where you're relying on those 2 bigs, I think that's going to hurt them in a playoff. They're number 1 in defense, but they're a middle of the road offense. They're like 15th or 16th in offense. So that'll be that much worse once the playoffs hit. So I'm not confident that they're going to remain. They'll probably be a top 4 team when it's all said and done. But I have more confidence actually in OKC than I do in Minnesota because with OKC, we know it really is just about them maturing as they go along. You're talking about a team who has Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's a top 10 player. He's 25. He's the old man on that team. Everybody else is 23 and under, with the exception of maybe 1 veteran. But that's how young they are. But when you watch them play, when they're on, they just wear teams out. And in a close game, they've got a guy like Shai who can close games out. Like, I love OKC's versatility. Chet Holmgren can play all over the court. He's not one-dimensional. You can call him a center. I call him a basketball player because he can play everywhere. He's that versatile. Williams, talented scorer. You got Josh Giddey. Aside from the off-court situation, however that evolves, as a basketball player, he's one of those guys that can do a little bit of everything very well. And they're well coached. So you give me the top 3, and you say it's Minnesota, it's the Nuggets, who I agree with. I think when it's all said and done, when Denver's whole, they're still the team to beat. The road to the finals will go through Denver. And then you've got OKC. I think the Clippers are going to be a top 5 or 6 seed when it's all said and done. But like you said, my thing with the Clippers is it's not that they can't be really good. It's we know the history. They're really good and things look good. And then Kawhi or Paul George are gone for the next month, or one of them gets hurt in the playoffs. Like, it's always with the Clippers. Yeah, but when is somebody gonna get injured? It almost always happens. So I never count on it. If I'm a betting man, I'm not ever betting on the Clippers. In full disclosure, I'm a diehard Lakers fan. I don't think the Lakers are title contenders. They're playoff contenders, and there's a big difference. They'll make the playoffs. They're not going to win a title as currently constructed. They're just not good enough.
Mo, is Minnesota your stereotypical regular season team? The team that's going to look good regular season. They're going to be towards the top. Then playoff time is going to come, and you're going to be having that conversation of what happened to Minnesota? They were so good throughout the season. Why did they struggle so much in the playoffs? Because, Mo, we know, and the play-in tournament helped this a little bit, but we know that regular season basketball is not postseason basketball. They don't get up every night. You're not seeing the same effort on defense every night when it comes to regular season basketball. And yes, I'm not taking anything away from Minnesota's defense. They are locked down on that side of the ball, but you just get a different type of competition when it comes to the same teams when the postseason kicks in. So are we setting ourselves up to see Minnesota enter the playoffs at a 1, 2, 3, or 4 seed, and then one series in be like, dang, they weren't as good as their records said they were going to be?
I hope not, because I think it's good for the league when you get up and coming younger teams who take that next step, right? It's good for the league when you can branch out, and it's not always the old guard. So it's not always Steph, KD, or LeBron. I hope not. But you brought up a great point. Minnesota plays defense. They hustle. They go for 50-50 balls. They play like this most nights. They play right now, Chris, they play like it's the playoffs. And the problem with that is when you're doing that in the regular season, in the playoffs, and then everybody else goes, now we're going to play as hard as you do. And in some ways, we're better than you. That is the big question. Like, are they a regular season team? And it's funny because in the Eastern Conference, that's how you would describe the Knicks. That's what the Knicks are, and that's what they've been the last 3 seasons. The Knicks are total dogs. They get after you in the regular season, and then in the postseason, they're one and done usually, or they might make it to the second round, then they get knocked out. I hope Minnesota, as they go through this process of taking that next step, they're not just a regular season team. But I'm not sure. I think you bring up a great question because we won't know. But if it does happen, will I be surprised? No, I'll be a little disappointed, but I won't be surprised because I still think that they need to add another element to what they have in their rotation. If you put everything on Anthony Edwards, that's going to be the struggle. Because I think that as good as Mike Conley has played, we need to remind people he is a 36-year-old, 15-year veteran. I don't know how many miles he has left in that body, and you don't want Mike Conley playing 38, 40 minutes.
And Mo, speaking of the New York Knicks, the report came out yesterday. They still think they have a move left in them. They still think that they have the pieces to get another big piece over there in New York. Obviously, we kind of know who they want to get in New York, but wanting to get a player and a player actually being available are two different things. Mo, looking at the Knicks roster, do they have enough assets to get one more star in there to kind of finish off what they want this team to look like for this season? Or do you think where they sit now is pretty much where they're going to be come 5.5 weeks when the trade deadline passes?
So I do think they're going to be aggressive and try to make a move. And if you're talking about assets in regards to the talent on their roster, no, they don't have that. But what they do have is the Knicks have a ton of picks.
Mm-hmm.
They have a ton of picks. And you could put together some kind of package. I would say what they need to do is put together a package that includes multiple picks and Julius Randle in some kind of 3-team trade. And I know that a lot of Knicks fans are listening right now like, oh, we love Julius Randle. I know you do. And that's the problem. He is the anchor around your franchise's neck. I know you're going to look at the numbers, and I know some of you would tell me, well, he's made all NBA Mo the last 2 seasons. Yeah, but like Chris mentioned earlier, there are teams that are built for the regular season. There are also players that are built for the regular season. Julius Randle is one of those players in the role that he currently resides in. If he's one of your 2 best players going into the playoffs, your ceiling, first or second round, period. This is what it is. The man is he's yet to shoot 40% in the playoffs. And that's a low bar. Like, that's a low bar. He's just not the kind of guy that can carry a team, at least not in the postseason. And I think that until they make that move, get away from that particular player, the Knicks have a ceiling. They're going to be fun to watch. They're going to be just good enough to break their fan base's heart.
Mo, yesterday on the show, we talked about Kenny Pickett and the Pittsburgh Steelers. A report came out a couple days ago that Pickett was inactive because of the fact that he refused to be the backup quarterback this past weekend to Mason Rudolph. That report went on to say that he is most likely going to be inactive this weekend as well, as Mason Rudolph is going to be the starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers season finale. Kenny Pickett came out yesterday and he vehemently denied that report, saying that he never refused to dress for the Steelers. He never refused not to play, and that the circumstances around him being inactive were completely falsely reported. Mo, regardless of whether or not what Kenny Pickett is saying is true or not, he's saying the right things publicly. Because again, I'll go back to what I said yesterday. Do I have an issue with Kenny Pickett being upset and telling Mike Tomlin he doesn't want to back up Mason Rudolph? No, I have no issue with that. Do I have an issue with Kenny Pickett in front of Mike Tomlin threatening to not play if he's not starting? No, I don't have that. That's between you and your head coach. If you think that you drawing that line in the sand is going to get you to where you need to be with your boss, and that's the tact you want to take it. You do you. If that's what you feel is best, you're doing it with the person who controls your fate. You're doing it with the person who either is going to start you or who is not going to start you. That's fine. And if he gets upset and he wants to bench you, that's okay as well. That's the risk that you take. But if this is an A and B conversation, I have no issue with that. I would feel differently if Kenny Pickett was going to the press and saying stuff. I would feel differently if Kenny Pickett was going on Twitter or X or something and saying stuff. But if this is a Kenny Pickett and Mike Tomlin conversation and it gets a little heated and Pickett says some things and Tomlin says some things and he gets benched as a result of it, it is what it is. Maybe you work it out later on. Maybe you don't, but it is what it is. As far as Kenny Pickett coming out and being like, no, it didn't happen, I think he's lying personally. But again, he's showing you that he's not trying to take this to the reporters. He's not trying to go out there and have the fan base rally around him, which, by the way, I don't think they would. I think they will rally around Mason Rudolph. But my point here, Mo, is that he's doing things correctly in the public eye. If you want to have a breakdown and say things in front of your boss, that's fine. That's a you and him conversation. The fact that he's not and we've seen it so many times. And we were going to talk about this today with Gene, but he's feeling a little bit under the weather. Look at A.J. Brown in Philadelphia. Every goddamn week, A.J. Brown has something to say to the reporters or on social media. Every week, it's something else with that guy, right? That's not what you want from your star receiver. That's not what you want from your quarterback. That's not what you want from one of your skilled position players. And Kenny Pickett is not going that route. So is it annoying to him probably that he got out? I'm sure it is.
Sure it is.
But for him to come out and be like, no, that never happened. It's misinformation. That's not what it is. It's something totally different. Don't worry about it. And say all the right things. For me, Mo, that reaffirms my position of say what you want to your coach and then let the chips fall where they fall. And then him handling it like this publicly, I'm perfectly okay with that.
And I liked what he said. You know, whether you believe him or not, he's saying the right things, like you said. I thought it was clever, though, how he was like, well, I'm injured because if I wasn't injured, I'd be starting. He did throw that in there, and I was like, actually, you wouldn't be starting, but okay, let's pretend like if you were 100% healthy, you'd still be starting, because that's his spin was, well, if I wasn't hurt,
Right.
So I'm not mad. I have no problem backing up Mason. It's fine. Like, and whether it's true or not, like you said, in the public eye, he's doing the right thing, and in private, you absolutely can disagree as passionately as you want with your head coach. If you weren't passionate about starting, he probably wouldn't want you on the team. So I have no problem with that at all. I think he cleaned up with what could have been a mess heading into a very important week for the Steelers. So I'm good with how he's handled it the second day.
I agree. And I think he will probably, my gut says he'll probably be inactive this week, since he put out the fact that he's still injured. I don't think the Steelers want to activate him a few days later after he said he's still injured. I think that will just create more buzz around it. So my guess is he's inactive going into week 18, and then we'll see. We'll see where the Pittsburgh Steelers end up. Maybe they make the playoffs. Maybe they don't. Obviously, this will be a conversation down the road, but Mo, I have a sneaky feeling this is Mason Rudolph's team for the rest of the year, whether it just be a week 18 game or whether it be a playoff run. I think the young man has put himself in a position to lead this team, which is interesting because if you remember a few seasons ago, there was a groundswelling of support from Steelers fans to let Mason be the starting quarterback. Right. They wanted Mason to have a legitimate chance to start during that final year where Ben was kind of touch and go. He wasn't himself. Fans were like, well, just put Mason in there. He's going to be better than Ben is at this stage. And then Ben retires and Mason didn't really get the look. So it's interesting that now he's kind of bided his time, done the whole third string quarterback thing, which can't be comfortable, Mo, if you think you should have a chance to start for the team. And now you're third behind Mitch Trubisky. So props to him for hanging in there and just being a professional.
Yeah, that does matter. Especially like you said, it's one thing not to be QB1, but then you get demoted behind a guy. You're like, I'm better than him. And look, I don't want to knock Trubisky. He's a professional athlete, and I'm not and never have been. So to be good enough to get to that level says something about you. Never mind the level of success you may have once you get there. The fact that you're good enough to be there, I have the utmost respect for. But having said that, I think Mason Rudolph, he's got every right to go, I'm better than Mitchell too. I should be at least QB2 at worst. So I think he's handled this very well considering the situation that he ended up being put in. So look, kudos to him for responding the way he did and being a good teammate in the bigger picture.
Well, there comes a time in life where sometimes the generosity has to come to an end. And sometimes you have that one family member, usually it's like a grandma or maybe it's a cool aunt where she gets the new cell phone plan and she gets all these free lines and she just throws it in the family text. Hey, who wants to jump on my line? I got all these free lines. And next thing you know, she's got 10 people on her lines. But you know what? After a few months, some people aren't paying. Some people aren't holding up their end of the bargain. The situation changes. And you got to have those awkward conversations where you got to start cutting people off of the friends and family plan.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what's happening in New York. We had the Aaron Rodgers friends and family plan. We brought a bunch of people in. And now as we're getting towards the end of season 1, we got to start making some business decisions when it comes to the friends and family plan. And we saw the Jets do that this week. They let go of Dalvin Cook. It was only a 1-year deal, but Dalvin Cook was there for the Aaron Rodgers friends and family plan. He picked the Jets for 2 reasons. 1, the money, and 2, he wanted to be a part of what Aaron Rodgers was going to have in New York. Aaron said it would be great to have Dalvin Cook. Dalvin said, oh, really? Sign me up. I'm all about that. Obviously, it hasn't gone as Dalvin would like to have seen it gone. Obviously, Breece Hall was always their guy of the future, regardless of what Dalvin did this season. But Mo, I appreciate what the Jets did. They are giving Dalvin Cook a chance to go catch on to a playoff team.
Yeah.
showcase his ability in a playoff situation in front of a lot of eyeballs against good teams while playing for a good team. And then he's going to go into free agency with that as his most recent resume, as opposed to going into free agency having barely touched the football the last 4 or 5 weeks with the Jets.
Right.
So I appreciate the Jets giving him that opportunity, because let's say he does pop off in a playoff game. Now teams are going to be like, oh, Dalvin still has it. Let's kick the tires over there, as opposed to having the conversation of he did absolutely nothing with the Jets. I mean, He wanted money. Yeah, he had, 4,000-yard seasons with Minnesota, but it looks like he fell off the cliff in New York. So he has a chance to erase that entire narrative because the Jets let him go. So I think this is a win-win. I don't know where he ends up, Mo, but I hope he makes the most of the opportunity.
Yeah, and like you said, the Jets didn't have to do this, so they did him a solid while helping themselves. And this is what I'll say about Dalvin Cook. I don't know if he's the same player that he was a couple years ago, but what I do know is because he has a versatile skill set, he could have a second life in the NFL as just a pass-catching running back. He's a terrific receiver out the backfield. The Jets didn't use him that way, but a playoff team may use him in that role as the guy that catches pass out the backfield, and he can be effective that way. And even if that's what he's going to be going forward, the opportunity to show those skills is a great resume builder or a great opportunity, right? It's an audition. Dalvin Cook's going to get to audition in front of the rest of the NFL playing for a contender. And so I think it's great for him. I think it's a way to extend his career. And again, like you said, the Jets did not have to do that. They did him a solid.
The owner of the Carolina Panthers is in hot water with the NFL. He was fined $300,000 by the league for conduct that was detrimental to the Shield. Now, Mo, if there is one thing in life you don't mess with, it is the NFL Shield. You mess with the Shield, they are going to drop the hammer on you. Even if you mess with the Shield adjacent, you are still probably going to get the hammer dropped on you. And I guess when you throw drinks at fans, people who pay to come watch your football team play, when you throw beverages at them, I guess it's probably a bad look for the league. So he wants to throw, drinks at fans because he's frustrated or whatever it happens to be for him. So the NFL has fined him $300,000. Gene makes a great point in the chat. When you're worth $30 billion, $300,000 is just a drop in the bucket. I agree with you. But obviously, the league can't fine him, $30 million or anything crazy like that. They have to start somewhere. But Mo, how worse can it get in Carolina? Not only do you have current employees reaching out to future prospective employees saying, warning them, don't come here. Right. You don't want to work here. I don't know you that well, but don't consider it. Right. So you have that already going on. You have clearly a football operation that is not running smoothly. You can see that by the way they handled the firing of Frank Reich. And now you have the owner. And there is some shady owners in the NFL. We have talked about this before. But you have an owner who is actively assaulting. It was assault. You can't just throw drinks at people, Mo. He's assaulting fans. Like, what is going on with the Carolina Panthers?
And I feel like somewhere in there, isn't there a lawsuit to be had? Right. Probably. I mean, if I'm one of those fans, I'm getting me a lawyer.
Because again, like Gene said, he has $30 billion.
Exactly.
He will pay to make it go away.
Exactly. I'm getting me a lawyer. I'm about to get paid. But
the ice hit me in the eyeball. I had an allergic reaction to the drink.
Yeah, I was getting ready to go.
Something happened.
I've got an eye strain from the vodka hitting me.
Something happened.
Yeah, I'm going there. Look, the owner right now, when things are like a dumpster fire, the owner is supposed to be the guiding light, the stabling force. He's part of the dumpster fire.
Yeah.
He is. And I don't know what any fan could say, as Gene pointed out, to a guy that's worth $30 billion to make him lose it. Like, what did he say? Like, yeah, you guys drafted Bryce Young, he sucks or something. I don't know what it could have been. It had to be something like that. But it wouldn't have, if I were him, you couldn't have made me mad. You couldn't have made me. I'm upset that my team's not very good. But, you know, when you've got that kind of money, I'm probably already thinking I'll just throw some more money at it. I'll get it fixed sooner or later. But no fan could anger me. I just thought I'm glad that the NFL said you got to pay some kind of penalty for this is insanity. We don't want on the brand is that we throw things at fans or we throw things at anybody for that matter, let alone you're an owner, man. Like you're one of the guys. You're one of the gatekeepers. What are you doing? What is your problem? Like, that's crazy stuff. It's not as bad as the guy that used to own the Clippers, but it's not that far removed. It's pretty bad.
You know, Jerry's sitting there this morning like, not even I would throw a drink at somebody.
No, Jerry would have one of his lackeys do it.
Right, because that's how you do it.
Right. He'd whisper to one of them, like, go throw a drink on them.
Right.
Jerry's old school.
Jerry knows how to get business done.
Right.
It was also reported this week that the Arizona Cardinals are going to be keeping Kyler Murray for 2024. They're saying that it has to do with his play this season, which I agree. I think he has played his way into being the starting quarterback for next season. But Mo, it also helps when you have a contract that is pretty untradeable. The cap hit for Kyler next season is extensive. So if they were to try to trade him, that would be an issue. Believe me, Mo, I know. I play Madden. I've tried to trade for Kyler Murray in Madden. Not many teams can afford him.
There are certain players in Madden, and I don't want to get too far off track here, that they are hard as hell to trade from, man.
Right.
I put together some amazing packages, and no.
And I'm sitting over here like, this will help both of us.
Right. I'm like,
just say yes.
Do you see these number ones I'm giving? Are you crazy?
But Kyler has played well in his return. Obviously, Mo, the biggest thing for the Arizona Cardinals, and I know that some D-Hop fans might get on me for this, but Kyler has never really had great offensive talent around him. D-Hop was a good receiver. I'm not taking that away from him. But if you take D-Hop out of the equation, what has Kyler really played with in his NFL career on the offensive side of the ball? He's had nice pieces. You know, Hollywood Brown is a decent wide receiver. Yeah. Connor is a decent running back, right? I mean, he's had pieces where you could be like, yeah, I'll take them late in the fantasy draft. They'll put up some decent numbers.
Sure.
But you're never looking at that Arizona offense and being like, oh, they got a top 10 wide receiver. They got an explosive back. Oh, man, look at their tight. Even though they do have a nice tight end now, McBride. He's a young kid. But he's never really had a great offense around him. And especially, Mo, this is the season in the NFL where we talk about this. It isn't just the quarterback. With Tom Brady for so long, with that old guard, it was Brady, it was Breeze, it was Rodgers. And with them, you could have the conversation of, if you got Brady, you got a chance. If you got Rodgers, you got a chance. They'll find a way to make it happen. Well, what we're seeing with the new wave of quarterback, I mean, look at Patrick Mahomes. Look at Josh Allen. They need things around them. And when things around them aren't going right, or they can't catch the football, or they're causing issues in the locker room, like what's going on in Philly, even though they're still scoring points, it doesn't work as well. So you look at a guy like Kyler, who has all the talent in the world. He is explosive. He is dynamic. He has some Lamar elements to his game. They got to put stuff around him. They got to go out and they got to get him some actual weapons on offense so we can actually see what he can do when he has talent around him. We've seen what he can do when it's just Kyler. We've seen what he can do when he has to put the cape on and figure it out on his own. And it's like Josh Allen. You see some spectacular, but you see more not spectacular because you can't be Superman every play. But Mo, if they can get some talent around this guy and get some competent play callers in there, it was only a couple of years ago he was in the playoffs. So I don't think they're that far away from being in playoff contention. but he can't do it by himself.
They need playmakers at the skill positions, period. I mean, like playmakers who have the potential to be all pro bowlers, those caliber players. And I'm with you. I think that Kyler Murray at times could be special. I've seen it enough. The weakness in Kyler Murray is this. One, he is a smaller quarterback. I mean, he might be shorter than Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
And so his strength, his actual strength is what he does when a play goes wrong. That's his strength. So when things are right and he's in the pocket, he's not as good, but he's not as good because he doesn't have confidence in the playmakers or the guys that are supposed to be playmakers. So they have to get him playmakers so that he doesn't have to look like Superman all the time. Like, it would be nice, I'm sure, if you're Kyler Murray and you had a 1,400-yard running back or a 90-catch, 1,200-yard receiver. He needs those types of guys. And I'm not saying you have to have that across the board, but get him one at one spot. Get him a running back. And I think, like you said, you can put together a team that can get back to the playoffs. Kyler's dynamic enough. He can get you back to the playoffs. And he's dynamic enough, just on him alone, he can make your franchise relevant.
And let's put him in an offense that is more catered to what he does well. Let's use some motion in the offense.
Some rollout.
Let's tease him running more than maybe he needs to. He doesn't need to run every time.
No.
But let's move the pocket. Let's have him roll out. Let's have him move around. And maybe it's still a design pass, but now he's out on the edge. And if it opens up, he's gonna take off. Like, let's give him more of that, because again, like you said, what his biggest asset really is what happens 4 seconds into the play when the first read wasn't there. And now he has to start making some business decisions. And we don't really want him making those decisions standing in the pocket, because that isn't his strength. So put him on the run. Let him move around a little bit. Make defenses adjust to what he might do. And then hopefully he's a good enough quarterback to see what opens up, because defenses are adjusting to him running or him taking off or him moving to the right or moving to the left. Let's see what that looks like, because we saw that a couple of seasons ago and it looked pretty good. He had a pretty decent record when that was happening. Then D-Hop goes away. The team gets a little bit worse, and now he gets hurt, and here we are. So I'm hoping Arizona chooses to invest smartly around him on the offensive side of the football, but we'll see what happens going into next season. Another thing that we found out this past week, I actually think it was this past weekend, and I was surprised. I was surprised, Mo. I would have lost money on this. Matt Eberflus is not being fired, so they say. I will believe it when I see it.
I don't think he is either, actually.
But so they say. He is not being fired. He is going to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears next season. It is confirmed they will have the first pick in the NFL draft. The Carolina Panthers clinched that for them. Thank you, Carolina, if you are a Chicago Bears fan. So, Mo, now comes the $1 million question. Is Justin Fields going to be your quarterback next season? And are you just going to draft weapons and a line around him? Or do you say, let's start the clock over? Caleb Williams is one of the best prospects to come out of the draft in the last 10 or 15 years. Let's start the rookie clock over with him, and let's use our second pick in the draft to build around him. There are many ways they can go. Mo, they can also trade down. They can also say, hey, who's around us in the draft? Maybe we can trade down a couple of spots, still get Caleb Williams, pick up another couple of draft picks, and go that route. There's many things they can do. At the end of the Chicago Bears game this week, the fans were chanting, keep Fields. So the fans are voicing what they want. Mo, what would you do? Would you keep Justin Fields as your starting quarterback, or would you be lured to the ceiling of Caleb Williams, which I think is higher than the ceiling of Justin Fields? I'm just going to put that out there. I think the ceiling of Caleb Williams is considerably higher than the ceiling of Justin Fields. But if Justin can have Lamar Jackson type production, which isn't a stretch, by the way, they are built very similar. If he can do that,
prime Cam.
Correct. If he can do that and you put a team around him, you could be fine there as well. Sure. So where would you lean?
you're right. I do agree with you. And I think most people would say that Caleb Williams' ceiling is higher, that he is a more talented player, if you will. The question is, though, what the ceiling thing is, and that's always like the $1 million question. We don't know if he's going to reach it or not. We have no clue.
No idea.
It is a conversation that I had like in a whole nother sport where I go, you're talking about talent and potential, and I'm just talking about what you're actually doing.
Yep.
And so for me, I would probably keep Justin Fields. I would keep Justin Fields. I would use that pick to go out and get Justin Fields some playmakers. I would build out that offensive line. Like you said, that number one pick, you could get back a horde of picks.
Treasure trove. That is a treasure trove.
Right. And you could build out that roster. Now, on the flip side, I've heard people say, they could trade Justin Fields to Atlanta, and he'd do. I absolutely agree. I don't doubt for a moment that Justin Fields would excel with what they already have in Atlanta. But if I'm Chicago, and again, not disagreeing that Caleb Williams has more talent or a higher ceiling, I'm looking at Justin Fields' ceiling as what he can be. We just said, like, you're talking Lamar-ish or maybe a prime Cam. That's a great ceiling. If he's going to be that, and you put the requisite weapons around him, not to mention you add more playmakers on the defensive side of the football, you're a relevant, competitive team. Not just competitive, but you're a contender if you build that roster out.
You're talking about 2 MVPs, Mo. Cam was an MVP.
Yes.
Lamar's already won one. He's probably going to win another one.
Yeah.
So if he's in that conversation, you're comparing him to 2 MVP quarterbacks.
Yeah, and right, and we're not talking about a guy who's like 31 or 32, like who's got some wear and tear. He's still young. You literally could treat Justin Fields, even though he's not a rookie, like he's your young developing rookie, because he is still developing. He's still learning the nuances of the game. I would keep him, and I would build around him, because I just think that the scary thing about when you tell me about ceilings is so many special and talented quarterbacks have come out and they've never reached them, or they weren't what we thought they would be. Look, we could go back to last season. I think a lot of us thought Stroud's going to be nice. I think a lot of us thought Bryce Young. It doesn't mean that Bryce Young won't become a very good quarterback, but he's off to a very rocky start. And it's not all on him, but I've watched enough of their games. He literally looks like a deer in the headlight in most games. He's seeing the rush, and I'm like, wow, he's already seeing the rush, and he's a rookie. That's scary stuff. So as tempted and as talented as Caleb Williams is, if I were the Bears, I'm trading that pick, keeping Fields, and I'm building out my roster.
If the draft order stays as it is now, currently the Commanders are number 2. They would probably take Caleb Williams. So it's not a hard sell to every other team. Listen, if we pass on Caleb, Washington's going to take him. So you need to jump ahead of Washington if you want him. New England at 3, the Giants at 5, the Falcons at 9, the Raiders at 11, Minnesota at 13, Seattle at 15, Pittsburgh at 18. Maybe the Rams want to start looking toward their future over at 23. Literally any team, if you want to give up enough, you are in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. You are in a position to change the trajectory of your franchise, even if your record wasn't terrible last season.
Right. That's
tempting, Mo. It's literally a lottery ticket for the Chicago Bears if they want to move off that pick and let someone else jump up there.
They've got so many options, Chris. I'm looking at the Patriots and I'm going, it's a big if Bill comes back, I think Bill would go against his normal nature. I think he would move heaven and earth and he would try to get him. He has learned, let's say he's been humbled and he's realized, like, yeah, I do need a franchise quarterback. It does matter, right? Like, I think Bill would do absolutely whatever it takes to pursue getting Caleb Williams. And I think Kraft, if he knew that Bill was thinking that way, I think Kraft would love that. Like, you're gonna go get a quarterback? Like, you? Okay.
What a great show on a Wednesday on a hump day here on Coffee and Sports.
Yes, sir.
Close us out, Mo.
Hey, thank you guys so much in the chat. Everybody that's viewing us all the time. We don't say it enough, but we're aware of that we have people that enjoy the show. And Chris and I both appreciate you all. So check out all the great content that we have to offer on Sports Empire Network. Check out the Empire.
If you're around tonight, make sure you check out Wire to Wire. They have a great show planned this evening. Like I said, usually Gene's on here on Wednesday talking to us. He's a little bit under the weather this morning, but make sure you check out Wire to Wire tonight. They got a lot of great stuff happening over there. And make sure you're back here with us tomorrow morning as we start heading towards the end of the week. We have pre-Friday Eve tomorrow. That's happening here on Coffee and Sports. We're going to start breaking down the final week of the NFL, making some predictions, and we got a couple of other things planned as well. That's all happening beginning tomorrow morning here on Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show on Sports Empire Network, and we will see you tomorrow morning.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about the team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any